like in clock and matrix.
Gonna
All
get
right, we're
plugged
live.
in or plugged out. I don't even know.
We're live.
All right. We're live?
Yep.
All right. All right. Welcome to the Contemplative CrossFit Weekly Mindstream. This is a show for our realization fitness athletes, recovering jhana junkies and non-dual zombies, meditation addicts, former seekers and current seekers, escape room fanatics, and anyone who is seeing through the illusion of a separate self but still feels depersonalized from time to time, wrestling with meanings and purpose, feeling lonely because nobody understands what you've been through and you can't talk to anyone about this stuff, and that strange feeling that something remains unresolved and incomplete. And if you have tasted spaciousness or touched the infinite, yet discovered that awakening did not exempt you from being human, then you're in the right place to come as you are. I'm Frank Yang, and this is Khan. Together, we founded the CC, oh, not CC Bootcamp, just CC in 2023. And this is the ninth iteration. We've been doing the bootcamp thing with our head coach, Mei Chen, for the last, I don't know, six or seven bootcamp. I can never remember. Yeah, yeah. But this is Roger, and Roger has been in the bootcamp for, this is the third time you're in the bootcamp, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
third time.
Yeah, third time. He's now on the operating team, actually. I guess we
Yep.
can get into what that is, but right now, he actually just came out of a one-on-one session with our head coach, Mei Chen. And before this, I think it was last week. Yeah, last week he got pinned by Adrian at 7-8. Sorry, not 7-8. Sorry, cohort 8, but 9-8. So we have a parallel cohort. We have two parallel cohorts, no, actually three. So many I don't remember. One of them is the D cohort, which is the view refinement cohort led by Taylor. But then the one that Roger is in is cohort 8. And I guess we can call that the relational fitness cohort, where once a week, one person get hot seated and everybody pins him. Yeah, that's the specializes in pinning people and just getting hot seated. Is that's cohort A. Yeah. So he got pinned. Roger got pinned last week. So how are you feeling, Roger? Roger, before I ask anything, Roger is so interesting because he is a escape room artist designer, and used to be a free diver, and he's been on the path for a very long time, and he had a few openings, and then thought that the seeking energy was gone, which it still probably is, but somehow he ended up here, and we're gonna find out why. I mean, a lot of people in that position, right? Yeah, yeah. Something's not complete, don't know what to do. So, hey, Roger.
Hey Frank. Yeah, so the pinning last week, it feels like this is actually the pinning. It's still continuing, man. Actually, since the start of the cohort, like 3 weeks non-stop pinning, or even before, because I already started to work for the operator team. So yeah,
Hmm.
fun times.
Mm. Oh, I guess working for the operator team is kind of like crossing that chasm from like the solo practitioner path, solo realization bubble, to like now you're doing this as a team, like a team sport. Now you're doing like bodhisattva work, right? The rest of the path has to be unfolded through taking on other people's affliction, but of course, we're also dealing and flipping our own karma. Yeah. And last week we introduced this whole theme of like karma of the week. And today we're gonna continue with that. And but Roger is here because he's representing the karma of the week of this week. What do you think the karma of the week is? Maybe you guys can both tell me from your perspective. With one sentence, what is the karma of the week that we're trying to flip to Dharma?
Yeah. So maybe I can start first. It's very interesting because I think week three we were talking about container, the
Mm-hmm.
feeling of no escape in a way. Everywhere you go, there you are.
Mm.
And we were touching about fabrication and how our mind constantly fabricates our sense of meaning. And I think it's a very confrontational week where the previous week we were talking about contention, where you kind of feel the tension, whether it's intensity or things you don't want to look at. Now you have to face it. But as you continue to do that, now you're just fully being with yourself and feel into this bubble of container.
Mm-hmm.
And once we do that, then I think there could be many parts of just cognitive dissonance, not wanting to see our view, not wanting to see, or not wanting to gather all the different parts about how we make sense of reality.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of hesitation or resistance towards being wrong, towards confusion, towards being seen, like totally being seen as you are and everything that comes with being yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And hey, Roger, you said that you don't like to do this because you're
No, that's the reason I'm here, right?
that's
Like,
what it's right here. You don't want to be seen. You don't like to do the live stream thing. You don't want to put yourself out there, do the
no,
whole YouTube.
this is pretty much out of my comfort zone. Like, since ever, as far as I remember, I didn't like to be in the spotlight.
Hmm.
And then, of course, you cope with life. So being at school and you have to do presentations, like you work your way up to it. You learn how to keep your posture. Same thing in a professional life. And then,
Hmm.
you can maybe prepare really well and you know exactly what you're gonna say. You make like all the preparations and or maybe you just read everything from a paper and then still you sort of nail it.
Hmm.
Um, but like this, without any preparation and also in a very public space, no, that's something I never did before.
Hmm.
Maybe some
But
public speaking in, like for example, being best man at a wedding. There was like a few years ago, one of my best friends got married, and I was supposed to, give a speech, and that I did. But I remember also there was so much. Well, I was fooling myself, telling myself there is
hmm.
no, yeah, there's maybe some nerves, but it's gonna be fine. And like I've done these things before. Like I will do it. And then
Yeah.
the night before, suddenly, all these things started to go through my head. The sleepless night, and then, well, eventually
Yeah,
everything went well.
It's
But
like preparing for a competition, pretty much. Because like we're like contemplative athletes, right? So this is like a competition for you this whole day, peaking.
yeah, exactly. But this time it feels there was, yeah, like you start a competition without preparing, without training. Well, I guess a whole CC, like each boot camp is a training in itself, but then this is really being thrown in the middle of the battlegrounds without any, yeah,
Yeah, because we talk
defense.
I
about
mean,
like
but yeah,
pacing and stuff, and this kind of like a maybe a mini peaking phase because it's still like week 3, 4, right? So there's like different phases of like micro, meso, microcycles. But I was wondering, I have a question. Who do you think you're competing with? It's a competition, right? Like, what are you competing with?
Yeah, myself, of course.
Yourself.
Who else?
They say that's the last boss on the spiritual path, right?
It always is, man. Like that's also,
It's the only
yeah,
boss.
in a sort of sense, yes, yeah.
Mhm,
So you're taking it up against your karma, right?
mhm, mhm. Speaking of karma, what's your perspective on the karma of the week? Because we ask you to come here in order to embody or represent the karma of the week. Someone from the cohort, someone who's going through the process, someone who's in your position being pinned, fresh.
Yeah. So getting back to the not being prepared. So I did not read the document about the karma of the week. Um, but like what Khan was saying also about the not being seen, well, we just went through that.
Mm,
For the well, I think the escape mechanisms, there's such a sophisticated escape mechanisms going on, and that's what's
mm,
always comes back to the a lot of times you just being confronted over and over again with your own subtle conceits when you
mm,
think, okay, well, now I think I see clearly, and I either work through this or refine my view. um
mm,
yeah, then you suddenly realize, oh wow, fuck, there's still this whole aspect of myself that I still don't
mm,
fully want to embrace or look at. And once you start doing that, that normally, in my experience, opens up a whole another can of worms, which you have to, yeah, be friends.
mm. Yeah, I think last week we kind of phrased the karma of the week as like becoming something other than what I am in the present moment in order to be okay, right? So to continue that line of unfolding this kind of karma, how do we do this? We do this by grasping.
Hmm.
Yeah. Grasping, insisting, reacting that reality should be different than it is. Grasping to be enlightened, grasping to not be yourself, like you said. You only insist on a certain portions of yourself, right? And you don't want other parts of yourself to be seen. And if you don't reclaim those aspects of yourself, you can't become whole, right? And grasping to like maintain identity or I think the number one thing that people insist on, I think from the people that I talk to, is like what Khan just said, is the grasping to not be wrong or the grasping to not feel stupid or confused. People have a huge problem with being confused or looking stupid, especially in modernity, where that almost like it's like life or death. You have to be smart or seem smart in the way that you think or society think what being smart is.
Yeah, that's a major thing. Coming into
Mm,
CC, I felt pretty stupid. You know, like you think, okay, I've got it all figured out, like done this,
mm,
read all the books and
mm,
I got it now. And then suddenly you realize, oh fuck, there's this whole, you know, this is like actually really living it, embodying it, and looking at it from a clear view. And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, then I noticed, okay, well, this was definitely not always the case.
Because for example, I think one part of week three is also like along the line within our team training. Like every team member is expected to embrace being wrong, embrace their
exactly.
failure mode, right? Like you gotta really, when we say pay homage to your affliction, is truly to see how you are the problem,
Mm,
how you are making the wrong decisions, how how your mind may be deluding yourself, and really take
mm,
that seriously, having that honesty and humility, right?
mm.
And it's really uncomfortable, I would say. And I can speak from my experience of just
Same.
being wrong and feeling stupid. It's just so uncomfortable.
Yeah, yeah. But that's how that's that staying power to stay with the discomfort is the practice. It's how you flip your karma. And what is karma but a bunch of holding patterns, right? But in
Mm.
order to like repattern the solidified formations that has been compounding over time, conditioned to be who you are and how you view reality, because that's what insistence is, right? We insist a certain bundles of holding pattern over and over. So in order to repattern that, of course it's going to be uncomfortable, and sometimes it can feel
Yeah.
like death. Yeah.
And that's like the core instruction of to flip the karma of the week last week is to the introduction of rest, right? Rest as the maneuver.
Rest. Yeah. The
And it's what's
maneuver,
so
no maneuver in a way. Yeah. You just be
yeah.
yourself.
One of the clarification that Mei Chang instruct the cohort was to point out that rest doesn't mean just letting go, doesn't mean
Mm,
just drop your effort, doesn't mean just like collapse. Because that's one of the I think one of the experience people going through the karma being wrong is people just blank out. A lot of like
mm,
myself included was
mm.
a huge wave of sloth and torpor. We don't want to make contact with the feeling of being wrong. So we
Yeah.
numb out, we like zone out, or we shut down, or whatever, right?
Escape strategies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just gonna want to go blank fade.
Yeah, I think a lot of the times we are conditioned to think that, oh, if you are having discomfort or uncomfortable sensations, then you're having a bad sit. But what we're saying is sometimes good sits are actually detrimental because you are kind of repeating that holding pattern of what
Mm.
you infers or what you insist a good sit is based on your previous conditionings and previous ways of practicing. And that worked for you in the past up to a certain point. But now, if you
Yeah, yeah,
continuously go back to the same maneuver, the same jonic explosions, or dropping the ball all the time, then you're stuck. You're actually reinforcing the same conditionings that got you here in the first place. So now we're saying,
yeah,
in order to flip that karma, you actually have to be wrong. And in fact, I would say spirituality or inquiry, or whatever it is actually not about being right. It's actually better to be wrong than be right. Because if you're right, there's only like one answer. You slice, you and twist reality into just very narrow route, and you keep defending that. And you keep hanging out with people that confirm that insistency, right? That's how echo chambers are created. But actually, spirituality is pointing out all the ways that you're wrong, all the ways you're wrong. And that's how rest happens spontaneously. When you point out all the ways you're wrong, you kind of just give up. There's nothing but rest. And we're talking about a kind of a unconditioned rest where it includes but transcends both rest on the conventional level and restlessness or like stillness and movement. And I think Adi Ashanta also put this like very brilliantly. He said like he felt that everything and people can relate to that. He felt it uh, accumulating merits and insights. He felt it meditating and absorptions. He felt it understanding all the spiritual teachings. He felt it being a human. And then finally, fill in the blank. Finally, yeah, Michael Jordan knows the same lesson. Yeah. So all the greats
yeah.
in the world, right? They all have this capacity to to be wrong. That's how you grow. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's also what I feel too. That actually within CC you sort of relearn how to be human. Whether you
Mm,
failed or failed certain aspect, or I mean, we all fail at certain aspects,
mm,
and I feel like I failed at definitely at a lot of aspects. But then
mm,
it's very easy to get into the headspace or just find that
Hmm.
blissful expansion instead of really embodying it and really living it through and
Mm.
living it out. That can be very discomfortable. Yeah.
Do you think part of the reason why you don't want to do this is because you don't want to appear stupid or wrong?
Sure, sure. There's definitely a part of it. There's some, I think, certain sense of vanity, but I
Mm.
think more, yeah, at a more foundational level, just very basic nerves.
Hmm.
And that's indeed something that within such container as this, I haven't lived through yet. So now, yeah, it's actually an interesting training. I mean, this is a training for me after all, right? Like, so
Yeah.
yeah, sitting here, listening to you guys, observing what's going on, feeling like, this restless energy at the bottom of my spine, maybe some clenching around the heart area. Um, yeah, and then of course there is this little voice maybe somewhere, which
Hmm.
I don't I tend to not really believe anymore, but of course it comes from deep conditioning. Oh, what? Maybe you will look stupid. Maybe you say the wrong thing, Like, yeah, sure, those things play a role of, that's part of being human.
So when you are resting as a non-maneuver in the context of our practice, let's say right now, like do all these feelings that you just described, what happened to them? They don't have to go away, right? Like how do you maneuver through these
Exactly, that's
feelings?
the thing. That's I think yeah, I'm sure earlier in my practice I was thinking, oh, you have to transcend all those things. Oh, I feel some
Yeah.
discomfort or I feel nervousness. No, it's about holding all those things to be
Mhm.
there, to contain everything and to live it out as a full human being. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. I would say even that word container, it can be a way to contextualize in a way where you're actually creating a space to hold the discomfort. That could be like a midway maneuver, but actually the ultimate maneuver is actually rest us the discomfort, rest us restlessness, while like simultaneously recognizing what's going on, recognize the pattern, so that resting, of course, like I said, it can be very painful and this can be a lot of discomfort. But I think a lot of the times people come here with the insistency on what rest is, and you fabricate a certain kind of a conditioned rest, right, around the sensations or whatever. But that could actually be a form of bypassing or dissociating or hiding. You can hide in equanimity. But true equanimity is just the fitness. When we talk about fitness, is the fitness to be with whatever is arising, whether that's positive, neutral, or negative. Even neutral sensations can like, oh, there's something I'm maybe avoiding. But it depends. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
When is the
For
first time
me,
you realize this is what you're doing? Like, oh, I'm actually resting.
for
Oh,
Roger,
yeah, for Roger.
yeah.
Is there a moment where like, oh, this is actually what rest is, and how did you know that was actually what rest is? Because I think a lot of people in
Ooh,
the cohort they probably struggling with, oh, what am I resting? Well, Frank says resting is restlessness. Am I resting? Is this rest? Yeah. How do you know?
Well, the first time I don't remember, but there were several points in which it's clicked. And then,
Hmm.
yeah, just resting with whatever is arising at that point. Um, I think a deepening of that's something which continues to unfold.
Good point.
So yeah,
Yeah.
the moment it clicked, there were several, but then there's still obscurations and still, yeah, like let's say incorrect view
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
as to what rest actually is in
Right.
a very practical sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So view is also important, not just the fitness, right? And like you say, it's the depth of the rest. It goes so deep. Even the clarity of the recognition, you can use two words, rest and recognize, but the depth of it, the clarity of it, it's pretty profound.
Exactly, sure. After some breakthroughs, I was like, okay, this is like full rest. Like I'm now in a fully restful state. My body is completely at peace, and
You thought that when
there's
you had your
no.
first opening? For a while, you thought that,
Well,
right?
but my
Or
first opening, yeah, probably as well. But there are several openings, and
mm,
it's at one point hard to keep track. But
yeah.
there were many points that I thought, okay, well, this was it. It was a big bag, and now I'm done. And then it's always slowly creeping up, and then you find ways around it. You try to rationalize the way, or all these escape mechanisms are coming into play. Like, oh, okay, now that cannot be true. No, like
Yeah, try to convince your mind that you're done or something, just so you don't have to go further into
exactly,
it.
exactly, until you hit to the point like, oh fuck, they're still suffering. No, there's something to be looked at
Yeah.
here. And actually, that's how I entered CC as well.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah. So what did you find about CC that actually made you felt that, oh, maybe there's something here that I could come in here and just continue this process with, I guess, trust or
well, for
faith.
starters, of course, you, Frank, and Khan
Oh,
as
I
well.
remember
Like,
talking to you. Hey, we had that conversation once. Like, I remember that conversation
sure.
very well. Yeah. After that conversation, I really like Roger. We got some things in common, and yeah.
Yeah, no, I saw a lot of commonalities on the path, and I really resonated with whatever you put out there. So I've been following you for years and contemplated the times maybe we should reach out. But then again, I was all felt like, well, his teachings are already there within what's being
Mm,
transmitted through the videos, right? Like I always felt like you were like a few steps ahead, and then, okay, I can make sense of this. I can feel into this. Okay, yeah, now I can, yeah, okay, I can relate to this experience. Um, and it was only then when you started to, CC was created, and then you started talking about the head teacher, like actually Mei
mm,
Cheng was involved, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. Like, well, for me, you were like the main teacher, right? But I also felt like there's nothing more to teach than what you already are putting out there. So yeah,
mm.
but that was what triggered me. But I
Was
think the
there like
main thing,
resistance to that or fear? Like, fuck, there might be like a lot more to discover.
yeah, in a way, yes, but also when everything fell away from me, it was also like, well, it was all sort of nonsensical. Why would I do that? It was more like, okay, I went through all this whole spiritual path just to
Mm,
start living my life. Now I can finally live my life. So, like, yeah, started to do a lot of stuff, and then I realized, fuck, they're still suffering. That's actually when I reached out to CC.
mm, mm. And that was also when you're kind of doing the free diving?
No, no, that was before
That's
that.
before.
Yeah, that was way before that. No, I think that was the yeah, let's say the initial awakening or realization when, yeah, basically that was a point that everything went smoothly, not necessarily my life, but how I related to everything that was going on in my life, which was quite a
Mhm.
lot. Um, and yeah, suddenly I was very positive, had a very positive outlook, and everything seemed to flow naturally, and I just knew what to do. And one of the things that I knew what to do was freediving.
Free
That really,
diving? Oh, interesting. So you just
yeah.
kind of spontaneously discover free diving after your initial
But
shifts. Like,
actually, how that came, I heard about freediving way before that, but I always thought that's something that you can only do when you're like a top athlete and you have to train years and years to be able to get, I don't know, to let's say 10 meters of depth.
mm,
A friend of mine was living in Indonesia, and I was visiting him. Um, and then he told me, "Oh, one of the things I did this year was a free dive course, and now I'm able to go to 20 meters of depth." I was
mm,
like, "What? What the fuck? That's so cool. That's all something I always wanted." But man, how long did you train for that? It must have taken you like a whole year. He said, "No, no, no. In 3 days, I managed to go to like 50 meters." No way. Okay, then I signed up, and I was hooked.
mm,
Yeah, then other things happened in life, which needed my attention, but it was still in the back of my head. And then eventually I had, yeah, let's say, initial awakening, and yeah, that really pulled me back into freediving.
mm.
Then
Okay,
that,
I do want to ask a little bit about free diving, just a little bit, because I
sure.
knew, yeah, I heard a conversation with you and Machen about how free diving is very similar to not just the spiritual path itself, but what we're doing in the boot camp. And it's like every day we're kind of like diving into the unknown, right? And there's a certain sense of like exertion and exhaustion, and also honesty. I think that's why you mentioned. You said you cannot not
Mm.
be honest when you're free diving. Can you explain why that is? Because we talk so much about like being honest with ourselves, not just like intellectually, but phenomenologically, and just coming as you are.
Yeah, I think it was one of the first conversations I had with Mei Cheng, probably. So I have to think
Mm,
back, but how I phrase it sometimes is freediving really feels like meditation without cheating. I
Mm.
mean, at the
You
surface
can't meme it.
level,
You can't meme it. You can't meme free
exactly,
diving.
exactly. Well,
What happens if
you
you
can try
meme
to.
free diving? You die.
Well, yeah, potentially, yeah.
How would you meme free diving? Well, can you give me an example of someone who's memeing free diving?
Man, that's a tough
Like,
question. How can you mean
maybe you can't. That's
freediving?
why you can't give me an example or something.
Maybe they only like dive a little bit and take some pictures,
I
just
think you can
post
only.
pictures,
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
post some pictures,
yeah.
but not really
Now
doing
Yeah,
it.
people do that
nowadays,
too with the
Yeah.
awakening.
I mean, there's a lot of people just freediving for the pictures, right? Because it just looks cool.
Yeah.
Mm,
So yeah. But no, how I saw that the meditation without cheating is because at the surface level, at sort of point, it was totally in peace as I felt, and nothing was really moving me anymore. At least not to like difficult territory.
mm.
But well, you can fool yourself like this, but when you're at a certain depth and you don't have any oxygen,
Oh,
like
okay.
everything starts to come out. So
Mm,
every little tension you're holding on to, fears and whatever, it's just popping up. So actually, I think
mm,
yeah, freediving was a pivotal moment for me because before that, there maybe was the clarity of mind and the expansion and sort of state of yeah a blissful state. Um, but I was still massively repressing emotions, and that's something I just never learned in my life how to deal with a lot of emotions, or maybe not even how to recognize them. But I was unaware of that, and I was just fooling
mm,
myself. And for example, whenever someone was definitely very harmful in my life. And it's like, oh no, but I understand that person. That person is traumatized. I love that person. It's okay, I forgive that person. And then free diving, feeling
mm.
all the tension in my body, and then taking it also, out of the water, waking up in the middle of the night with nightmares about, harming the person. Like, oh fuck, I'm not forgiving that person. There is actually a lot of anger. There's a lot of rage. There's a lot of things that I still need to process. But if you never learn to process that, well, then there's still a lot of work to do.
Yeah, yeah, I can relate to that, Roger. Yeah, yeah, because I think our paths are similar in the sense that we're pretty intense, right? And because then we found the spiritual path where we had some openings, and now we have the maneuver or even the talent to like say yogically just pull this maneuver to abide in spaciousness or jhanas or infinity, or we'll try to appropriate the finite through the infinite, or try to appropriate the relative with the ultimate without truly closing that gap between like the ultimate and the relative. And then you can actually just making that concavity thicker and thicker by creating conditions like you say, you're just lying to yourself or finding ways to justify yourself or get
Yeah,
lost in
exactly.
spiritual
Yeah.
concept. Or another one that's really interesting, I think, is creating the right life conditions so that your container, your spiritual container, the dome, can sustain itself. And then you'll feel pretty blissed out most of the time. But life is not, I mean, there's going to come, unless you really go to the mountains, there is going to be stuff in life that is going to show you what you need to see, right? And how long did it take you to realize that okay, actually I fucking need to do something about it? Like, I'm lying to myself. Like, what was the was it like usually it's like relationship, right? For me, it was like relationships or even this identity as like the one who's awakened and all that kind of stuff is pretty common, right? Like, what did you have to work through? Like, what made you realize okay, I can't lie to myself anymore. I can't hide in the
Yeah,
even
I think
awakening.
what you're pointing at, that's something that you can do in an entire lifetime, right? So
Mhm.
you basically just bypass it all the time.
Yeah.
But at one point in my life, everything just started to fall apart. What's at the time when COVID happens? My mom was diagnosed with, or back then she was not diagnosed, but she was clearly losing cognitive function.
Mm,
Business was shutting down. Someone stole pretty much all my life savings. I lost access to my child. Well, so many things were happening all at once, and then all these things that you would normally
mm.
try, all the coping mechanisms,
Those things won't work.
they
That's
just
too much, right?
yeah,
Or
like nothing
yeah.
worked anymore. And I'm
Mm,
sure if it wouldn't have been to this severity, like I would still have found a way out or around it or whatever. And And even when all those things were falling apart, basically, we were all crashing down, I was actually still at a pretty blissful state. But only yeah, it needed to I needed to
Mm,
cook in it a little bit to realize, okay, fuck, there's
interesting.
really still
Mm,
things to do. And
Yeah, I
and
think
and that's actually what I
yeah.
feel. Then it really started, then the real work started in a certain way.
mm,
That's one of the things that a lot of maybe spiritual folks who's right now don't see the need to train in very rigorous manners. I
mm.
think we may not see that, oh, we are feeling blissful because life conditions is
Are good.
very favorable right now, right?
Yeah,
But things could go sideways very fast
yeah,
and out of our control. So because we don't see the impermanence of our conditioned existence, we
yeah,
get complacent.
yeah. And like I said earlier, you kind of continuously insist on certain kind of light conditions that would
Yeah,
perpetuate like the bliss. So you cocoon your life in a very particular kind of pattern that actually reinforces the karma until
yeah.
something shit hits the fan.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
think like most like after the previous cohort 9 promotion, we started to talk to a lot more practitioner who's like 15 years in, 20 years in,
Mm,
some even 25 years into the journey, and they have pretty much have gone through the path enough that they see how, oh, there was really like 5 years where they really feel like they got it all,
hmm
and then the condition that support that started to fade away. And then they see that, oh, there was a gap in fitness.
mm,
They were not able to recreate those conditions. And now they have
mm,
to either kickstart another training cycle. A lot of folks like that join CC, maybe like Roger is in that example, or the other folks who just decided to stop spirituality altogether, or just back to
mm.
being a normal guy.
Yeah, I'll back to being a normie now. Yeah, whatever that means. Yeah, but I think it's really interesting because the longer you wait, it's kind of like the more calcified your view is. And actually the harder it is to work
Yeah,
with these people. And some of these people have like really powerful insights and awakening. And because these powerful insights and awakenings are powerful and legit, it actually makes that concavity, that spiritual concavity harder. And that's
yeah.
not to say
Like
it's not,
the
genuine.
view
Yeah.
get yeah very
Even, yeah.
ossified, and it just reduced
Yeah.
the entire path into like their previous experience. Oh, I
Yeah.
experienced that
Yeah,
before.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
or that they kind of stuck in the past where like anything you talk to them about spirituality, they would just pull out like stuff that they read during that time, like 10 years ago or experiences in their
yeah,
head, and then they would not look at anything else. Anything else that
yeah.
they
They
look
can't
at,
take on new
they can't
information.
take it. They would
Yeah,
reject it in a way where they actually would just continuously reaffirm that other view. And I think nobody
hey,
gets it. Nobody
but
gets it.
yeah,
Yeah.
we gotta be real with this too, because this also happened in our boot camp, right? Because every new
Oh
boot
yeah.
camp
Happens to
is
me,
a
to
new,
everybody
fresh.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like every boot camp, even though we train in the same manners of the first week would be earth, making contact, grounding ourselves in feelings, but every boot camp is also new. We also
Yeah.
have to watch out for our complacency in the boot camp. We gotta update, we gotta
For sure. Yeah.
fresh start everything.
Mm, mm.
Because there's always that entropic force, right?
Yeah, of course. Like the nature of compounded phenomenon is there's momentum to it, and this existence, this plane of reality, is forward compounding. That's why there's entropy, which kind of leads me to like the next point of contention. Let's talk a little bit about now you're saying the boot camp day, maybe a little bit of the pedagogy. Last time we had the water element, right? The water of becoming, right? The first week we have contact, earth. We won't go over this week, but now third week, which was last week, we have the air element. A lot of people
Yeah.
get very, very confused about what the air element is. So this is where a lot of people start to struggle because, like we said, one of the things that people are contending with is, they're insisting on not looking stupid. They don't want to be confused. But the air element will make you fucking confused. There's a very thin line between being totally confused during the training of the air element and then just fucking get it. Because I remember I was just talking to this acolyte during all the discussion. He was really confused, but then you can see he's at the edge. But when someone is at the edge like that, just with a little bit of pointing and the right refinement, they flip karma to dharma like that. Because you're not really changing, fixing anything. You're just being with it and then shifting the perspective from like a snake to like a piece of wood, right? A snake to a log or something like that. So he was so confused. I was like, oh, do you feel into that the momentum of that confusion compounding? Do you feel it viscerally? Right? Do you feel that form momentum of how formation, like form, we talk about form mating with form on top of form is formation, but there's a momentum to it. Very important to really feel into the momentum of your becoming, because most spiritual teachers, at least not in the modern spirituality, so don't talk about becoming, as we said before. But not only do they not talk about the patterns of becoming, we don't pay attention to the volition of it. the time aspect, right? The unfolding aspect, which by that time he was so confused. The compounding was so clear. I couldn't even see the compounding. I was like, right there, you're getting it. That's formation. That's fabrication. That's volitional formation. There's a volition, finite of volition, and then he, for the first time, I think he visually felt what a formation is. Yeah, I thought that was a pretty interesting moment. So, so Khan, how would you describe like how is the karma of the week, this insistency on like say not being wrong or grasping? How does that relate to formation or fabrication?
Hmm.
Like, are we insisting a certain kind of holding pattern? Therefore, we don't see how our formation are being compounded. Therefore, we grasp at anything that isn't what we insist our own shape and form of the self or reality should be. Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you think
Yeah,
something
I
like
would
that?
say that. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we have a very strict and stable sense of reality.
Mm,
So when we get confused, that sense of
mm,
stability of what's going on, it's getting shaken up, right? And we don't want
mm,
that because it's, destabilizing in that way,
mm,
right? We don't actually want our view to be deconstructed because
mm,
that sometimes that feels like when it's really extreme, it feels like you are dying.
mm, mm, mm,
Right? With the confusion, it's like, oh, it's so confusing.
mm,
Right?
mm,
It's like your sense of a worldview is getting rubbed and creating friction.
mm, mm.
Right?
Yeah,
That's
and
why
also
the
we okay, go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying that that's why the sense of container,
Yeah,
because once you are tuning into the transmission, there is that possibility of view refinement, right? You're getting
right,
exposed
right.
and getting point out that this is how you see the world.
Hmm. Yeah, I would say like, okay, we pointed out that everything is form, everything is formation, but then we as self views have a very specific ways in which we grasp onto these formations. Yeah, and that creates the holding pattern. And the more you grasp, the more solidified that formation is.
Yep.
Yeah, that's basically it, kind of. And I think it's really important to study the pattern because sometimes we don't really understand how when we study these things, it's almost like it's a geometry we're studying. It's a study of a morphology, structures and form. You've been talking about views. There's a structure to it. There's a form to it, and that form morphs and vibrates and unfolds, right? And then
Yeah.
sometimes because I talk to friends about this, they're like, okay, they just go to ideas. Oh, this specific idea, that specific idea, this sensation. But actually, we don't see how it's not just like a specific moment, a specific thing. It's also unfolding through time. So there's also like an element that's kind of like a wave. So it's like both particle and a wave. So you have to study how the particle and the wave interact to form our view and to form the way we compound reality. So that's some pretty trippy shit, right? It's like what do you think, Roger? Like we're kind of like studying like just the geometry of our entire reality, right? And just deconstructing it, see how it stacks up from the ground up. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I do like the air element. I'm pretty comfortable with being confused and just,
Mm-hmm.
acknowledging how stupid I am at times. Um, but I can see that if you're not comfortable with being confused, it can be very, very overwhelming. No, it's actually, I think it was so far my favorite week, even though I was being pinned and cooked and everything, and that
Oh, wow.
continues.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But you would say these kind of like pointing out your blind spot, that's what we're doing as a team, right? Like, would you say it's impossible to see your own view? That's why we actually need to do this realization thing as a team.
Oh, for sure. That was something that before joining CC, I didn't see that clearly, and was actually, yeah, I think it came in it. Okay, I will just work on my own liberation, whatever. Um,
Mm.
and actually, after the first cohort, I I did like a quote unquote indie cohort as a independent practitioner, and I think I was also the last indie practitioner
Yeah.
of CC. That just
So
didn't
it's kind of
work.
like you went back to being a solo practitioner for a cohort because
Exactly. Yeah.
your schedule
Exactly.
didn't fit like the group schedule. How
Yeah.
did that go?
It, it was pretty lonely, man.
So
I
you
felt
missed
like
the group
I,
setting. You missed us.
exactly. Besides missing the group, I also found that the practice was not working.
Mm,
It wasn't the same thing. Like, being in a container with other practitioners and realized beings. That's
mm,
then really your shit comes out. Everything that you're
yeah.
withholding and not want to look out, that will surface.
Mm,
And outside of CC. I don't think there's any container to have such practice to train at this level. So yeah, you were talking about it before as well. Like it's easy to be realized or being happy in a light of being in a monastery. Well,
Yeah.
this what we have is basically an invisible monastery. So if you still want to engage fully in your life,
Mm,
or yeah, y- yeah, if you just want to show up in life, you kind of need this container if you still want to develop
yeah,
this
yeah, because we've
level.
been talking about how this is like lives or my stream, a karmic stream, right? It's relational, right? It's like the stream is not just your and my, it's the interaction, the relationship between our affliction that creates the karmic streams interpenetrating, and that's kind of what we're
Exactly, and that goes
studying.
so
And
deep. Like everyone you
yeah,
interact with, they
everyone, yeah, even like people
everyone.
around you who don't care about
Exactly.
spirituality. Mm,
Yeah. Yeah, that
so,
was a beautiful thing
mm,
also,
mm,
starting to work as an operator and getting in contact with yeah, with a variety of people, people that were applying and other acolytes or other team members. And yeah, you just see yourself or aspects of yourself that, well, maybe you're not contending with it anymore, and maybe some aspects you are, or maybe they actually highlight or reflect something that you didn't even
mm.
realize you were still contending with or something you're not looking at.
So
Yeah,
if you
so
get pinned, or if you watch other get people get pinned, that part of you who is co-resonating with that karmic pattern would get pinned too, right?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. I think a lot of times it might be even more valuable to see the pinning of someone else just because actually,
Mm,
yeah, part of you is being pinned simultaneously.
Yeah, that's why I think there's a protocol in 9A that you get pinned and then you watch the
you
recording of
watch
you
yourself
getting
getting
pinned
pinned.
again. Because in the
That's
moment you're
crazy,
getting
dude.
pinned,
Meta.
it's yeah, it's too direct, right?
Mm,
Sometimes you kind of like, whoa, you're in shock. Like there's some
mhm,
question that's pointing out that's too close, that hits too close to home. You don't even know how you're responding because that's the
mm,
Yeah,
part that maybe the autopilot, the unilluminated aspect, like the aspect that just hidden in the darkness, first
mm,
time ever come out,
and
mm,
that's still something
and you
I
have
need
to
to do.
rewatch it again.
Yeah,
mm,
I still need to rewatch my pinning, but I think in general, rewatching those things, that's something I never did in life. I think it was just cringe to watch myself or even hear myself talk, right? So,
mm, mm,
um, yeah, I didn't grow up making videos of myself and putting it out there like like Frank did, for example.
mm,
Um, so this was actually within CC was the first time that I saw myself back. Sure, I've seen photos of myself, but really, have you seen yourself interacting in a conversation? And then you're like, wow, am I? Oh, wow! You just observe yourself from inside and outside simultaneously, and you start seeing your own patterns and afflictions and bullshit.
mm.
Oh, that
Yeah,
was
that's
the thing
interesting.
at the end of cohort 7 where everybody got to watch their beginning of the journey
Mm,
again, right?
Oh, right,
Yeah.
right, right, right.
Because
Yeah, I do that
yeah,
in
everybody
my,
got
my
a
videos.
video.
Sometimes I film myself, filming myself, editing myself. Yeah, but that could become its own system. Any like, there's no particular way in which like your pattern unfolds, right? It's not like if you watch yourself, you're gonna unfold it. So maybe watching yourself can be your form of like solidity or holding pattern.
Oh,
Yes.
speaking of holding pattern and calm of the week, I think in
Mm,
week 3 there was a very strong emphasis on it's a
mhm,
really good time for you to stop paying attention to your cool down patterns.
mm,
Because in week 1 we're making contact, so it's a lot about warming up, taking things in, coming as you are. Week 2, from that warm up, you're starting to see a pattern of becoming. You're starting to
mhm,
see where friction arise, contention happens, where you have to balance it a bit different. Like a part of you
mm,
really want to sit down and see through your own
mm,
bullshit, while the other part don't want to see it. If you
right.
manage to do that, we have these kind of moment of release when there's like, wow, I feel so relieved now. In week 3, now you are really being highlighted on the aspect of you in the cool down process, how you resume your life from that
Interesting.
kind of spaciousness or from that sense
Mm,
of being open. How do you become contracted again?
mm,
Because I think like a lot of us do the session before we go to work, or do the session in the middle of
mm,
the day, and then we got to relieve the stress, right? But then the stress
mm,
come back.
mhm.
But if we
That's
can
yeah.
slow it down, yeah, how do we see our cool down?
Yeah, that stress coming back is actually part of the practice, part of how the patterns reveal, right? Because, like, okay, you have a really great sit, you're gonna warm up, and then you feel this momentum of like the absorption, and then you go into the main session of the section of the absorption. But then when you are about to cool down, you can really start to notice that transition. I think John mentioned it, how that just really recognizing the form or the flow or the just the shape and the texture of that transition is actually so important, more important than the actual absorption, because then you are seeing how all of your life conditions start to creep back up, like during the
Yep.
warm up, and you really want to go through your
Yep.
thing because we're being conditioned, like the momentum.
Yep.
That's great. The momentum that creates the
Yep.
pattern. Right? Yeah.
You
You
could
were saying?
see, like, for
Yeah.
example, even your relationship with time, the
Yeah.
relationship with responsibility. For the
Yes.
moment that, okay, the Mei Chang is starting the cool down speech, I have about 10 more minutes in the session, and then discussion happens, or I don't have time for discussion
Mhm.
because I have to do this, do this, do this. And suddenly now you are in a fabrication of how life's supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can see that clear and
Yeah.
clear.
Mm.
Right.
And just the ability to just sit as that uncomfortable momentum of how you insist life to be. That's the journey. And I think it's really interesting because like the contrast, the relation, because everything is relations, right? So it's like the relation, the contrast between like the absorption. There's a certain form of consistency in the absorption where you don't see unless it's contrasted, unless it's been related to the life condition. And now you have the content, holding two paradoxes, two vectors of becoming. That's the practice. Then that's actually where the release comes when you contend
Yeah.
with both and then just let them cohere. Yeah.
Yeah, because we were talking about rest for a while, right? But rest is
Mm.
this ability to serve the edge of contention and allow for all the uh, contradicting parts to resolve itself. Like you can just serving
Talk
in
to
the
each
in
other.
this
Yeah,
lane.
yeah, yeah. You
Yeah,
don't have to get rid of anything. You just let those different parts talk to themselves, let them cohere, and then now you can decide. Should I go this way?
yeah,
If you want to get up the sit and go smoke cigarette, yeah. If you recognize it, that's your pattern. Yeah, go ahead. But if you don't
yeah,
recognize it, then that's the part that splits because if you don't recognize, then you are ignorant of it. And if you are ignorant of a pattern or anything in that matter, you're creating a split because ignorance means you're ignoring a part of you. So that's why ignorance leads to suffering. If you ignore it, you put it this way, you suppress, bypass, there's a split, and you can never see it. And you just continue to reinforce the part of you that you are not ignoring. And then that's why you just insist in this part that you haven't been ignoring. And then if that part gets challenged. Oh, I'm wrong. That's why the part of
yeah.
you that you've been ignoring when it comes out, it can be so illuminating but painful and like fuck, like what's the word?
Yeah.
Like, you know, yeah. Just contending with that. But then that's you. You're
It's like
doing
an
it.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's like an atrophied muscle, right? You have never used
yeah.
it before, and now it's the first time
Mm,
you're using it, right? Oh, I'm so weak. Yeah.
yeah.
But speaking of which, one of the recommendation for week 3, when we're starting to work with this layer of fabrication,
Mm,
if we can't hang in the confusion, there is a maneuver to go back to check your contact, check your breathing,
right.
check your breathing, check your posture. And I think Roger was also mentioning how John's embodiment training was helping out a lot. Maybe you can speak a little
Mm,
bit about that.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's another thing. Like I've been doing a lot of breath work and other types of training. So then you think like, oh, I know all these things already. I got it. But actually, yeah, working together with John, he pointed out some very subtle things, and then also combined with the pedagogy from CC, things started clicking in real life. Like I was practicing with, for example, with the air element, but also like, well, let's go back to free diving. Working with the breath. Like for me, breath was more like, yeah, like the intake of breath, and then of course you can guide it throughout the body and etc. But to not necessarily see breath as a respiration, but also as yeah, the breathing of, for example, the chi energy, however you want to frame it. Um, you can actually breathe into everything from all angles, and this
Like
gave me.
360 breathing.
Exactly. And this suddenly that clicked. And of course, in the past I would have visualized this or would have,
We're gonna make it a new thing, 360
Mm.
breathing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Dude, I have videos of me doing breath with 360.
yeah. You got it, man. But for me, this time it really clicked. Before it was maybe meaning, but this time it really clicked.
Mm.
And yeah, things started opening up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I was just watching John's video today. I was like, this is really everyone should do this, especially like the air element. Like from this point on, there's gonna be a lot of confusion, whatever, very heady stuff, because every element is about formation, sure, but then it's also about the formation of meaning, right? How we slap meanings on top of these formations in order to like pin things down into perceptions to make sense of things. And we're not aware
Yeah.
of how we make meaning, but in the process of deconstructing meanings through formation and all the way down, that could be very ungrounded, right? So if you're doing all this air element stuff, and then it's really important, I think, to supplement it with something that's grounded. And I think John's embodiment series, which is been doing every week now, can be a really good supplementary
Yeah,
or
totally. It has been
because people
very,
get like
very
groundless.
helpful.
Yeah,
I,
they get too
a lot of
groundless.
people
Yeah.
underestimate how important it is, how important the
Yeah.
aspect it is. Like it's a complete package, right?
Mhm.
All those elements need to be in
Mm.
check
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
order
I think I
to
just got lucky because I also worked out, right? Even when I was going through shifts, I
exactly,
was still
yeah.
working out. So, but not everyone goes to the gym like that. So people still need to be
No,
grounded.
definitely not to those extremes. I mean, what you've been doing, exposing yourself in all, well, most insane ways you can
Mm.
imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had to go through a lot of discomfort, but you felt comfortable doing it. And most people
Yeah.
never do even a
Yeah.
fraction of those things. And then besides that, also being very athletic and, of course,
Mm.
very gifted violin player. So I think all
Yeah.
those things they're yeah,
Mm.
maybe for you that's also a blind
Yeah.
spot actually is that so many people
Mm.
yeah don't
It's so
have that,
funny.
right? Like there's
Mm.
so much in that already, so much.
I think sometimes
Mm.
like people can even mischaracterize a lack of staying power for gains. Like when you actually don't have the ability to hold energy, you get
Mm.
manic, actually.
Yeah.
Like you get
Mm.
blissed out, like, oh, that's
Mm.
actually a way that you to show that you can't hold this energy because now just falling over your experience. Oh my God, I
Yeah, but
understand
they think that's
everything now.
gains. Yeah, they don't want more
Yeah,
of it, more to stabilize.
yeah.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
see that that's actually a sign of you don't know how to cool down. You don't know how
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
seal the session and
Yeah.
return to baseline consciousness. Because after a while, you can only do it for so long. Something's gonna become tilted.
Mm.
You
Mm. Mm.
verify that, and you kind of keep doing that. And the cost of just wanting to keep doing that is your life stop.
Mm.
Like you stop taking on new information. You stop, cultivating your practice. You let that experience go and move on with it. But because we
Mm.
don't know how to properly seal up that session, it just keep proliferating.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's that happens to me because I like a lot of background in
Mm.
exertion. So when
Mm.
certain openings come, I would get manic,
Mm.
too much energy. So a lot of the training with John on embodiment of like breathing or with Tyson with lifting in a way that is contemplative, like contemplative lifting to like, okay, stay in body. It has
Mm.
been helping me to digest negative experience, but also just know how to hold more energy.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, this is a very tricky thing, right? Because like sometimes, we feel like this is gains, but only after a few months, we're like, oh, that wasn't gains.
Mm.
That was the
Mm.
shiny object that I got caught.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Yeah.
gain.
Yeah, usually it's a byproduct of release of attention, right? And the moment you verify that to be the gain, then you're fucked. You're back to the same cycle.
Yeah,
Which is
yeah,
what everybody does actually. If you don't know the pedagogy or like the mechanism of like how
yeah,
phenomena are compounded, like there's no way around it. That's why people get stuck. That's why I got stuck too.
yeah.
You're
Because the
kind of
maneuvers are really
mistaken the
week
yeah.
three.
Mm.
Week three is like, can you actually instantiate beginner's mind? Can you
Mm.
actually see fabrication for the first time again
Mm-hmm.
to be
Mm-hmm.
fresh?
Mm-hmm.
Because when we see it the first time, we don't even mind being wrong, right? Of course we're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I was there when you got pinned, Roger. I do want to maybe spend just a little bit of time hearing you talk about what that experience is like. So people who are curious about what is this pinning hot seat, like what's
Sure.
that like? And I remember Chris made a comment about how, hey, Rogers is an escape artist. He might be able to make maneuver out of this, whatever it is that we're trying to pin down on him. Can you talk a little bit about getting pinned and maybe how this whole thing with escape room and being an escape room artist, how does that relate to the spirituality path? Because in a way, spirituality it's kind of about escaping the prison of your mind, right? Or at least deconstructing the conditionings that are trapping you. But now we're saying that can only take you too far because you actually have to wake up as the conditioning. Yeah, you don't even have to break out of anything. You find liberation within and as the constraint. but there was a process that unfolded that gets to that realization how there is no cage in the first place. Well, that's it's a little too abstract, but talk about that a little bit. Like I'm really
Yeah, well,
interested
that's a
in how
beautiful
this.
analogy,
Wait, should we
but
should we show some of our Roger's work?
ah,
Maybe later. Yeah. Or you put it up right now. Yeah. Let's hear Rogers talk about. Like I'm always fascinated by
sure, put
like
it
who
up.
the fuck does escape room? I've never been to an escape room, but how does that align with the spiritual path? Yeah. Like what do you do in escape room designer? Oh, we're gonna share it now? All right. Yeah, this is Roger's work. Is that music?
Yeah, so when creating this escape room, um,
Mm,
I was really intrigued by immersive theater, and we wanted to combine immersive theater with an escape room. Escape room basically is a room or a set of rooms in which you have to find your way out. So there's clues, there's puzzles, there's a story to it, which eventually yeah sets you free, liberates you in a way, maybe.
mm, mm.
Um, but this
Uh,
one it's very different in a way that um it's more like a real life horror game. So as um as participants, you become like a character within that horror game,
oh,
and
that's
there's actors
interesting.
as well. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is definitely not a classical escape room, and back then it was pretty innovative. At least in Amsterdam, I didn't know, or in the Netherlands, I didn't really know any other escape rooms um,
Mm,
which
that's a really good
actors to such
idea.
degree. So yeah, that was quite something to make. It was really like a passion project. I did it together with two associates, and they were also really passionate about it, with a lot of eye for detail, make it super realistic. Um, yeah, so I remember we set out, okay, we got to do this in 5 or 6 months. Eventually, it was like 1 year and 3 months or something to set it up, but it's still up and running, and still people really appreciate it. And still, um, whenever I go there and witness some of the games, it's still really beautiful to watch, like the interaction with the players, how they react to it, and actually for a lot of people, they're really facing their fears.
Mm,
Um, so for example, someone who was working for us, I think his brother went 2 or 3 times because he said it was one of the most transformative experiences in his life. He really faces fear.
Wow.
Yeah.
wow. So by escaping that room, he was also kind of deconstructing his fear, escaping that part of himself, for lack of a
Yeah,
better.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. And I have to say, this one, for example, there's most people don't. Well, it's not necessarily about escaping. We call it escape room because that's what people know and are looking for. But
Mm,
it's more about the story, and the story does end differently. And well, just like most horror stories, it doesn't tend to end well. So also in this case, I think it's only about 20% of the people coming that actually get to a winning end. Most die.
mm,
Wow.
Yeah,
mm.
What
You
happened to
said
the
both.
other 80%?
Oh, sorry.
yeah, they die. That's
Did
Oh,
they die?
wow.
Did
Okay.
that? Okay. Wait, so most escape room is not actually about escaping, it's about the story or your installation
No,
where you
the
combine
classical
like
escape room is really about escaping, and
okay,
actually,
but
yeah,
yours is more about the
most escape
story.
rooms
Okay.
are about escaping, but
Okay.
of course, as the concept has been evolving, story
Yeah.
is becoming more, more increasingly important.
Mm.
To it's basically like an art installation, right?
Mm.
So
Okay, so like if you escape, if you're a character in there and that character escape, does it transform? Like, is this escaping even out of his character? Or does his character have to go through some kind of transformation or evolution in order to make the escape? Like, how does that narrative thing tie to the escape?
okay, okay. Yeah, well, in this case, it's well, I don't want to give away too much, but people have to well, they release evil entity, and they have to exercise it. So,
Mm-hmm.
that is really about, yeah, um, teamwork, thinking together, and yeah, what can I say about this? Yeah, I see where you're getting at, but to make a crossover to what we're doing CC, it's a bit
Is there any crossover? Or
uh, sure there are, there always are. One that I can access now. I mean, like you said before, it's like, escaping your mind or maybe your body, or yeah, that's definitely a metaphor analogy I was using before. And well, you started out with that Chris was pointing in my pinning, that he was
mm,
pointing out that I was an escape artist. I think in a certain way, yeah, that's really how the mind
mm,
works, right? Like we have such a sophisticated, powerful minds, always creating our own deceptions, illusions, and finding ways around it instead of dealing with it, instead of really confronting yourself with what's right in front of you. You can even fool yourself into believing that you're doing that.
mm, true.
That's yeah.
How do
So
you discern? That's why you need. I know you need like teammates and stuff, but like, yeah, how do you discern, right?
yeah, that's a
I guess
question. How do you
that's a very
discern?
nuanced question. We don't have to get into that,
I
but
think that's also depending on the what it is you're contending
yeah.
with at the moment. But yeah,
Yeah.
uh,
But what I found really interesting is that that escape mechanism, that kind of the ability or talent to escape, becomes the trap because now you're using escape strategies to escape instead of contacting the present moment. But before that worked because before you
exactly.
can
Yeah.
yeah escape certain conditionings and relieve temporarily and be in that state for a while. But then that becomes a zone trap. Yeah, that maneuver to escape to look away. Yeah.
Yeah. So that
You know,
the
you really have
escape
to face
artist
yourself.
also has to deconstruct himself.
Can
Yeah.
you repeat that?
So the escape artist eventually also has to
Yes, yeah,
deconstruct
oh, yeah,
himself. Yeah.
non-affirmative negation. Yeah, you have to
Yeah.
invalidate everything. Yeah, yeah. Cool. Yeah. Tom, Tom asked a question. Should we read it or can it anyone?
Roger, what do you think about Tom question? I
Yeah,
just posted in the chat.
yeah.
Do I see the chat?
Yeah, Zoom chat, just here.
Recently spending time with my mom and dad. Well, yeah. Well, as I said, so my mom is diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and um, yeah, going through difficult times. Both my parents, and yeah, let's see. So yeah, there was last week. I spent some time with them, and it was both difficult and beautiful at the same time. Like I see it's interesting to see how my mom tries to grasp on things that she knows or that she seems to know, and mostly when there's
Mm,
like an emotional charge behind it.
mm,
And you see how she's holding on to certain dynamics, also certain dynamics that are not necessarily making her happier. Maybe dynamics that she has been contending with her whole life, which actually reinforce some, um, yeah, anxiety or fears or whatever. And now you would say that that would be the first thing to go, right? But no, that's what she knows, and that also reflects really what we are doing. Like a lot of
mm.
us, I think how Mei Cheng is talking a lot about the Stockholm syndrome, right? So we're
Yeah.
basically holding on to whatever, yeah, is holding us back as well, or but that's what we know, that that's safe to a certain extent, instead of really going into the unknown. And going into the unknown, that's something that I see shining through more and more, like the some lightness in my mom. She's obviously suffering a lot, and also my dad. But I I, I see some lightness starting to shine through, which I did not see before. Yeah,
Yeah, interesting, right? We kind of construct our own escape route and then try to escape that until we realize we can actually just rest. Yeah, don't stop, won't stop. We can actually just rest. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm. Yeah, you did talk a little bit about that, right? Like, I think someone asked you a pretty sensitive question, like, what do you fear more so, not seeing your son or your mother dying? Like, yeah, maybe talk a little bit about what that experience was like. Like, what's getting pinned like? Like, what got revealed? Was it uncomfortable?
It it was not that uncomfortable, but it was to a certain extent of what we're feeling. But it is funny how your mind is blocking it out. So for example, Tim at one point he was really pointing something out, and I just knew it really made sense. But
What did it pin out? What did it point out to you?
yeah, I I cannot reproduce it. Like that's something like I said, I also have to rewatch the recording.
Right.
Um but I felt there was a lot of truth in there.
Hmm.
And that's also why everything started to become obscure. Like I couldn't access it. Like I couldn't construct what he actually said. Like it didn't make
Mm.
sense, even though it made completely sense. It didn't make sense at the moment. So that's
Yeah,
something.
sometimes we have that.
Mm.
Sometimes we have that feeling in. I think especially a lot of people report that feeling with some moments in the transmission that you feel you have an intuition that something is hitting, but you can't even conceptualize what just hit you, what just occurred. But you
Yeah,
know there's something significant just happened.
yeah. That's a lot of times also a lot of times also when an insight arrives, right? Like you have a sudden insight, like all this clarity, and that you start to make sense out of it. You start to make
Mm.
conceptualize it, to either write it down or put it into words, and then you kind of lose it because
Yeah, you
it
kind of
is
go
non
back to
conceptual.
the old way you're kind of wrapping meaning around that, but yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, that's training as well, and that's
Mm.
why I think the pedagogy is also important as we
Yeah.
practice in CC. But yeah, that's still
Yeah. That's why
work
we
in
need to
progress.
cook,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
yeah.
that's really cool because I have that same problem. It's like every time I have insight, I have to write it down. At least more so before, but then I realized that real insights you cannot conceptualize right away. Otherwise, it's not really truly from the unknown, right?
But
So you
you do
actually have
Yeah.
write
to
them down.
sit with it. I don't really write them anymore, but I used to just write down the insights immediately, and I thought that was like a virtuous thing to do. But that could be
I
a
also
trap, right?
stopped writing it down. I thought like,
Yeah.
if it's really meant to stay or if it's really, a valuable insight, it will come back or it will be there, Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I also stopped caring so much about my own progress as much as before.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It just hasn't occurred to me so far. Recent like boot camps to like there's some moments where I want to share, but most of the time I don't think about my own progress. Not that's not to say that I'm not practicing, but yeah. Hmm. Have you gotten pinned before, Con, at the A situation? I got pinned once in cohort 7. That's why I kind of can relate to that.
No. Yeah. I didn't really get pinned by cohort A, but I guess pinned by Mage
But you
A.
get pinned all the time by the team, sometimes by Mei Chen especially. Yeah, Mei Chen will pin everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Next
they're
live
getting
stream, we do a live pinning of Khan.
yeah.
Next time we pin the host. We get some acolytes to come and pin the host.
Yeah. It's always an interesting experience, right? Which is just you just gotta allow your karma to
Mm,
be worked on, where you understand that mm, your cognition, what you understand at this moment, you don't want this because yeah, how can you want it? How can you want your that sense of motivation just doesn't apply, right?
yeah. That's a really interesting paragraph. It's like what Mei Chen has been saying. Like it's like everything you do want it in a sense, but then there's a part of you that says I don't want it. But that part of you that says I don't want it is
Yeah,
like a fabrication that wraps around the fact that everything that is happening, you constructing it. But how does that
yeah,
happen? How do you not see how you are constructing, and in some ways even avoiding the fact that you're constructing, creating a story to split that? Oh, I actually don't want this, but then why are you here? Oh, that's why the split keeps continuously compound. You can contend with it.
so how do we generalize Roger's experience learning lessons here for folks that is in the boot camp and also our audience member who's watching from afar, now coming to week 4 of cohort 9, right? One of the things I was seeing is, oh, actually I'm noticing how Roger's capacity to rest is increasing
Even from this
by a
morning.
lot. Yeah, even by from this morning. Yeah,
Yeah. This morning, Roger was like, but he was staying with it. He was like, oh, yeah, he has to practice 3 boot camps. All right, let's see when he gets pinned in life. That's how it is.
yeah. So how do you see it, Roger? How do you
Yeah.
see your own experience? Now we are at the tail end of this live stream,
He
so
relieved.
wrapping up.
He's like, I can't wait to be this to be over.
No, it's not that bad, but I mean, it's more the anticipation. But of course, also right
Um,
before this, I had a one-on-one with Mei Cheng, and that felt like a homecoming. And he pointed out a lot of things that deeply resonated. So I think a lot of the charge fell off. And besides that, I mean, I literally have been sitting for like 14 hours in online meetings today. So it's also like I just overcooked. Like, okay, it's I completely I surrender to it.
Yeah, yeah,
right. So
yeah.
That's the
But
context, right?
Roger has no show to rest right now. He has no show to
Roger
rest.
has been Roger has been joining meetings from like the first training, and then afterwards we did a rehearsal of this live stream, kind of brief about okay, this point, that point, and then he joined the 9A training, and then he did a one-on-one with Mei Chen, and now he hop on here. So that's a long sequence of training
And
in
then
a
after
day.
this, we have the whole meeting. So yeah, fun,
Yeah,
fun stuff.
that's easy for you and I. Even yesterday, like I was at the freaking strip club, and then I wasn't even watching a stripper. I was actually reviewing Roger's freaking like karmic cases. It's like, all right, tomorrow's live stream. What am I gonna do? I was like, so I spent like fucking 4 hours in a club, like reading like karmas and like CC pedagogy. That's
Mm.
why we flip it karma. And then this morning is a whole
So
day of
yeah,
meetings, everything. Yeah.
I think in terms of looking forward, I do see that we have wrapped up phase one of training, earth,
Hmm.
water, air, and that create the basis of the foundation.
The
When you
basic
make,
elements.
uh, yeah, when you come and you decide to just sit, you end up accomplishing contact, right? So when you sit and then you contact, and then we gather, and now you have contention.
Mm,
You're gathering all that contention. And when the contention arises, now you can have rest in the container,
mm.
right? And as you keep resting, now this is the territory of weak fall.
Yeah, yeah.
Can we
Okay, well, I
rest
want
with,
to.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I want to mention that contention part because like after you contact, you're gonna start to notice like the feelings, contact and feeling, colorize, and the feelings is where the vector is because the feeling is what's creating the momentum or maybe the resistance towards that feeling is what's compounding towards a certain trajectory. So what you're contending with is these vectors of desire. Yeah, I like this, I don't like this, neutral, and that all is different becomings. If you don't know how to contend with it, that you become like you don't know how to choose, you don't know how to live, right? Yeah.
mm,
And then those vectors eventually rolls and forms into patterns that we call formation. And then there's meaning, which is also formation, like that's lays on top of, which is a more like subtle version of formation, but it's the meaning making system part of it. And then this is what contending with this week is like that whole thing about fabrication, how things are put together, how things are compounded, the momentum, the trajectory, the patterns, how it rolls, the shape of it. Pa, 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 pa. And then now we containing all of that into a cooking chamber next week or this week actually, starting from today, the
yep.
fire element. Now we continue all this what we call sentient resources. All the afflictions that we gather becomes the sentient resources. Now they can cook, and I can start to see. Today I was working a little bit of like fatigue, and the just letting that fatigue like exhaust is so blissful. Yeah, start to burn, start to purify. That's what purification is. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Illuminating,
This week
illuminating. Yeah.
we will start to work on, yeah, how well we have established the cookie chamber in the first 3 weeks on the
What do you think
three
that
elements.
next? What do you think the next week's karma contention is? Karma of the week next week. Let's do a little forecasting. Are people gonna just start burning? Like, what's that like for most people? Last week you said people are gonna be very confused, and then that came true. What's the sort of the karmic report or forecast this week? What do you guys think?
I think the team has to run a bit early. Like the team has to train a bit faster. So on
Mm.
the team side, we have reported that there's going to be a distinction between clean burn and dirty burn.
Oh,
Right.
right.
Right. So I
That's a
think
good
that
conversation. Yeah.
that will play out. Like, how do you
Okay.
actually rest in a way that how do you hit contention without suffering?
That's a clean burn, right?
Yeah, that's clean burn.
Okay.
So it's like you aware of the kind of problems that is arising. You don't grasp onto it. You just allow the becoming to unfold and let it exhaust and exhaust.
Mm.
And through that way, you have that sense of, relieving yourself of the previous conditioning. You have a new pattern. You have a chance to create a new pattern.
Yeah, I would say after a certain point, it's like you just clean. It's not like after you burn, it's just no more burning. It's like there's afflictions everywhere. There's conditioning, there's reality. It's like you're just clean burning all the time. It's like the burning
Yeah,
is
that's
so
the goal, right?
specific. Yeah, the exhaustion and the exertion, whatever it is so fast. It's like always burning. It's like the rising and ceasing happening simultaneously. That's why there's no rising, no ceasing, that kind of area. Yeah. That's like
I would
ultimate
say
clean
that,
burn, but
yeah.
of course there we can talk about what dirty burning is maybe next week, but
There's
this
also an element of the cohort, which is now we're getting to the pressure cooker. So I reckon that the level of intensity will increase.
mm.
Maybe the initial motivation will run out, and now you have
Oh
to
right,
tap
right.
into a deeper sense of what you're here for. Like you have to
Mm,
revisit aspiration, because we're saying that the condition for a clean burn would be established between the honesty, so that you can
mhm,
see how you are living in fragmentation, how the different
mhm,
parts of yourself fight, and then you have aspiration, which is this direction, this orientation to unite, to unify
mm.
all these different intention. And then you can
Right, right,
rest
right.
and allow the healing process, the purification process to unfold.
Mm, mm. Yeah, we
Yeah.
haven't really talked about aspiration this podcast, but that's a recurring theme throughout the bootcamp is like aspiration and the transformation and the continuous unfoldment of aspiration and the different representations of it. Because without aspiration, you're gonna run out of like motivation, whatever got you here, right? I want to get enlightened, I want to do this genre. That's all kind of conditioned, right? But when that runs out, when that started to get burned, what's keeping you here, right?
Yeah. And probably that would require you to, continue to dive deeper into the unknown.
Mm,
So probably there's going to be some even more discomfort. Maybe we recognize how we have failed or haven't done the proper training in phase one. That will lead to a dirty burn. That will lead to, intensity leads to suffering in that way. And probably in that way, we can come to re-examine our fundamental practice, like breathing, like posture, all the basics.
mhm, mhm.
Because the earth, water, air doesn't stop, right? We continue
Yeah,
to practice throughout the rest of the cohort.
yeah, yeah. All the elements are there, all the areas are there. It's just like each week we pick like a certain way of tuning into reality, certain slice of reality to deconstruct in order to see how this moment has been compounded or put together. Yeah.
Yep.
And the more solid and the fundamental has been built, right? And the more solid the foundation is, the when you get to the other elements, so you have a stability, and then that also reinforce your understanding and the way you tune into the earth element. Like they all reinforce each other in fractals. So all these practices, they're just all reinforce each other and with each other too, right? We
Yeah.
talked about it before, how like your karma, Roger, whatever is getting untangled, like I can feel it too, and other people can feel it too. Maybe not so obvious, but we're doing this as a live stream or my stream, and my streams are always relational. Yeah.
Any words from you, Roger, to the audience or to whoever is getting on this mind stream next?
No, you take me by surprise. Well, just rest and recognize.
No, no, my thing was like just fucking to the practice. Yeah. Yeah, I just always gotta remind people 99% of the work is showing up. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
Roger's been showing up. So yeah. Thanks for coming, Roger. How
Yeah,
do you think
welcome.
how did you think it went? Did you like it? Would you do it again? Next time you can interview someone.
Yeah, sure. We'll do this again next week.
Next week? Yeah. Oh, shit.
All right. Yeah. Shall we end it?
Anything from the chat
Okay.
or
The chat, I posted Tom's question. Tom also said, I admire your courage, Roger. Thanks for sharing. Um, yeah, other than that, people just saying hello, shouting out our show. Cool episode.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right.
Good
So
stuff.
maybe that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Roger.
Yeah,
We
thank you,
can
Con. Yeah.
Thank you.
end the show and we'll see each other next week. Take care, guys.
All right. Next week, 4:30. CC
4:30.
Mind Stream, 4:30 p.m. on Monday. Yeah.